everyone. My name is Ranjita and I'm a part of the Living Bridges team. And I'm here today to have a conversation with Myra Walden and Bob Wentworth, both of whom are CNVC certified trainers and who are offering the upcoming Empowerment Therapy program. So Myra and Bob, I'd love to start with maybe hearing a little bit about your journey with NVC. Both of you have been with Nonviolent Communication, practicing and sharing it for quite a while now. So I'd love to hear a bit about how you got started and what this journey has been like. Myra?
So I came across nonviolent communication through a professor of mine during my graduate studies, who had studied the life of Marshall Rosenberg, the life of people who had devoted their lives to the service of humankind. And one of her subjects was Marshall Rosenberg. And one day she loaned me a booklet, and I thought this was going to be one more communication system. And I discovered to be a lot more deep and meaningful than I imagined. And then one day, Marshall Rosenberg came to Chicago, and I went to see him a whole day. And at the end of the day, I was blown away. I thought this would have possibilities to help build world peace, and it would also help me grow morally. And so I asked Marshall how I could learn, and he said, you could come to a 10-day intensive training. And I did at the end of the year. And oh my goodness, at the end of that trainer, I decided that I wanted to give my life to sharing this model. And this was over 20 years ago, and here I am, still passionate about sharing nonviolent communication. And now its new model that I called empowerment therapy.
Hearing Myra talk about this subject reminds me that the way I heard about it was I encountered a person who said, I've just come back from likely a 10-day NVC nonviolent communication retreat, and this material is so fantastic that I'm going to dedicate my life to it. And I don't know whether she did or not, but it got my attention. And it turned out that nonviolent communication was kind of an answer to not just one, but two different quests that I'd been on for some time. The first quest was I had looked at all the challenges that humanity is facing on this planet, and I thought, is there a common thread? Is there a place that I can focus that would help all of these problems that humanity is facing, as opposed to just picking one and focusing narrowly? And what came to me was that there's something about the way that human communication doesn't work, and people end up dividing the world into us and them, and thinking that they are crazy, they're foolish, what they say doesn't matter. And it cuts off the flow of communication that allows for the emergence of solutions that could work for everybody and actually be sustainable. And that this is a fundamental barrier to human beings collectively solving our shared problems. And so for some years, I've been looking for how could we tackle that problem? Even making a small dent in that would be huge. And so the first thing that attracted me to nonviolent communication was the way that it provides a bridge and a framework and a lens to help bring people come together to think about how to move forward in a way that does work for everybody. And so I was really pleased at the contribution to that kind of existential, big-scale human dilemma of how do we get along and how do we make the world work together? I also quickly learned that nonviolent communication offered some deep answers to a more longstanding question of mine, which was, I started out, excuse me. I started out my career focusing on technical work. I have got a PhD in applied physics. But I've always been very interested in the human condition. I had a lot of challenges with just how to cope with life and enjoy it when I was young. And so I worked a lot with psychotherapists. I pursued a lot of personal growth modalities. I learned a lot, but I found that nonviolent communication was the single most helpful body of work I'd ever encountered when it came to how to relate to myself in a compassionate and caring way, and how to. And nonviolent communication also provided a gateway to how to relate to anyone that I want to be close to in a way that is satisfying and could work. At this point, I can't imagine recommending that anyone be in intimate relationship without knowing some of the perspectives and skills that nonviolent communication offers. Mm-hmm. So to me, nonviolent communication offers important contributions at the global existential level, at the intimate interpersonal level, and at the internal intrapersonal level of just how to be alive and do so in a more satisfying way. So it's just a big package of very powerful ideas that combine synergistically in a way that I found really compelling. And when I first encountered this, I had the luxury of being able to do a lot of training. I did maybe 5 or 6 week-long trainings a year for maybe my first 3 years of studying NVC. So I dove in the deep end, and it was really a delight, and every minute of it was worth it. And I just want to add one anecdote. The first time I ever encountered a CNVC certified trainer, a woman named Imbal Kashtan, I went to a one-day training that she offered on parenting. And I'm not a parent, so it wasn't directly applicable. I do very much care about the well-being of children and parents, and have a lot of sympathy for what a challenging dynamic that can be. But I was in this day-long workshop on NVC and parenting, and after an hour, I called all my friends in the area who were parents and said, "You got to get down here immediately. This is amazing material." And wow. I was hooked from then on.
Wow.
So on a playful note, I want to ask what happens when a therapist and a scientist walk into a workshop?
When it's Myra and me, I expect that magic is going to happen, because we've got distinct skills, both emotionally and cognitively, and I think that we really play off each other's strengths in delightful ways. And I guess that's not for me to say, but I enjoy it, and I have a sense that participants are likely to enjoy it as well.
I feel the same way. I'm very happy that Bob and I complement each other so well. And I also think that the dynamic of seeing a man and a woman treat each other with kindness, with respect, and with care is very powerful. And so in that sense, too, I think it's very useful or can be useful for participants, and even healing, I venture to say. Mhm.
And it might be artificial, but we'll have to introduce some conflict just so people can see how we process conflict between us. That might be very helpful and informative.
Yes, yes.
I want to chime in and say that what you've described here is my experience of how the two of you work together too in my interactions with you. I see so much respect, I see so much care, and I see really a recognition of what each person is able to bring to the table. And yeah, so I'm guessing our participants will definitely have a lot to take away from just even watching this dynamic. What prompted you to create this framework that, that empowerment therapy is?
Well, when I learned nonviolent communication, I started applying it to myself first and then sharing it with my clients. And when I saw the benefit that they received from learning this powerful model, I wanted to adapt it to the psychotherapy field, to expand it, and then to share it with other therapists so that more people would benefit. So it was really, the inspiration came from the results that I saw from the clients that I worked with. One of the groups of women that I led named itself, once they began to learn nonviolent communication, they named themselves Women Confident and Free. So it gives you a sense of what they were getting out of the group, thanks to NVC skills.
And I want to ask Bob, given that your background is in science, what brought you and Myra together to work on this? Because I know you've worked closely together on offering this.
Myra, correct me if I'm misremembering, but some of it began because Myra was looking for outside perspectives to help her think through the material and really bring it to its fullest potential. And we happened to connect around that. And so I started supporting her by vetting the way she was expressing her thoughts in her book. And we found that I enjoyed the way that Myra was bringing order to a unification of nonviolent communication and psychotherapy. And I think that one of the things that I contributed was sometimes a nuanced depth about how to think about certain principles of nonviolent communication. And although, I'm not licensed as a therapist or anything, I've had a lot of experience in kind of personal change modalities to a point where I've got a lot of awareness of the way that people who are struggling with the world, what can help and what can get in the way, and the way that NVC can interact with that. So I think that Myra found that the perspectives that I was offering were helpful both at the NVC level and sometimes even at the psychotherapeutic level. And I think we just had a experience of saying, hey, we are really both contributing to this in meaningful ways and really enjoying the synergy that we were experiencing between us. Oh.
Yes. That's my recollection.
What does empowerment therapy mean to you?
Wow. This is so exciting to me. Oh my goodness. So I believe that the problems that we're in as a society and in the world have to do with lack of self-connection. I believe that human beings are compassionate by nature, but we disconnect from our compassionate nature for many reasons. But typically because of difficult and challenging and painful experiences in childhood. And as a result, we suffer. Our mental health, our physical health, our relationship with self and others suffers a lot. And when we disconnect from our feelings and needs and from our natural care, we lose our compass in life, and we lose our innate ability to care for ourselves and one another. So for me, Ranjita, this is a very meaningful question, what you just asked. What it means to me is helping people connect with, regain self-connection, because I believe that there's not only healing and restoring our compass in life, but beyond that, it's our ability to care for ourselves, for one another, and for the planet. My only hope in life, in the world, comes from self-connection. This is how much it means to me, how much this model means to me.
For me, empowerment therapy fits into a larger context of human suffering. And this is a world that produces tragic quantities of human suffering, in addition to immense quantities of human joy and delightful aliveness. And I would so like to shift the mix of those.
Mm-hmm.
And my perception is that one of the reasons that there is so much suffering in the world is because the world is structured in ways that inflict subtle violence on people continually, all the time. And this has the result that most human beings are traumatized to varying degrees. And we've learned habits that perpetuate these cycles of traumatization. And so one of my deepest longings for the world is that we find a way to end this cycle of traumatization and re-traumatization and subtle alienation that creeps into our relationships unnecessarily. Tackling that issue needs to be addressed at many levels, but the level of the personal and the psychological is central to this vision of creating a better world with less suffering and less trauma. And for me, empowerment therapy is a tool for helping those who also have a goal of reducing the burden of individual trauma and teaching skills to prevent the occurrence of new trauma, to really support their clients in making that happen, in finding a way to help people heal trauma, live more productively with whatever unhealed burden of trauma that it's not practical to, simply transform, and to relate to one another in ways that it's far less likely to generate trauma and far more likely to support aliveness and delight in living.
Mm. Mm.
And what I'm getting from what both of you are sharing is that this is really about looking at the micro, the world of the individual, the macro, the world itself, and without losing on the individual's sense of agency.
One of the tragic patterns in the way the world is structured is the way that it both glorifies the individual in ways that are unrealistic and create painful separation, and also diminishes the individual in ways that lead people to feel powerless. I think perhaps that's the reason why pop culture has such fascination with superheroes, because it's the counterpoint to how powerless people feel on some level.
Mm.
So I think it's really important to find our authentic power, to address what is in our sphere of influence and what we can do to develop real, solid, trustworthy agency. I think it can make all the difference in our well-being and in our capacity to contribute to others' well-being.
We're talking about empowerment therapy. What is unique about this approach? Maybe we've addressed that a little bit in this previous question that both of you answered. What makes empowerment therapy different from other forms of therapy?
Yes, so psychotherapy, traditional psychotherapy and various modalities and schools of thought help people identify and transform distressing patterns of thought, emotions, and actions and behaviors. And as a result, people feel better, their symptoms subside, and if they have effective therapy, their symptoms subside and they attain higher levels of functioning. But typically, they don't know how to build more fulfilling relationships and more satisfying lives. So this is the gap that empowerment therapy fills. It gives people the skills and tools to create better conditions and have more happiness and well-being in their lives. That's what's unique. It's actually very empowering. And another aspect of it is that it helps people recognize life alienating systems, the systems that they either inhabit or encounter that diminish their well-being. And it helps people break free from those systems internally, sometimes externally also. But if that is not feasible, they learn how to break free or internally through the concepts and processes, concrete processes of empowerment therapy.
There are two things I want to add, and I'm just going to try to name them briefly as placeholders so that I don't forget them. One has to do with a systemic level of there being maybe a understanding of the societal level that is built into nonviolent communication. And the second has to do with the way that nonviolent communication has the potential to teach us how to live in a more satisfying way, in a way that I personally found absent from some personal growth modalities. So let me expand on that. When Marshall Rosenberg developed nonviolent communication, he took a deep look at what is it that's getting in the way of human beings relating to one another in more satisfying ways. And what he discovered is something that kind of seems obvious in retrospect, but I don't think was obvious at the time and probably is not obvious to people who haven't internalized some of the awarenesses that come with studying nonviolent communication. And that is that the habits that mainstream society teaches people impose a constant burden of subtle alienation from self and alienation from others. It's like sand being poured in the gears of social interactions and in relationship with self. They're just constant irritants. And these constant irritants, I wish we were like oysters and we could grow pearls from it. And maybe that happens sometimes, but very often the result is just suffering and not getting along with those that we love and not knowing why. not getting along with ourselves and not knowing why.
Mm.
And what this social analysis that Marshall Rosenberg did, that is kind of, in some ways, one of the underpinnings of nonviolent communications, what this does is it says, not only here's a difficulty, that there are these habits that impose kind of unseen costs that we don't notice because it's just the air that we breathe and the water we swim in. It not only pointed to some issues, it also offered concrete, powerful solutions. Like, what is the alternative to these habits that mainstream society encourages in us? And they are beautiful, delightful, and life-serving habits that just create possibilities that I don't think are possible in any framework that doesn't rest on such a deep social analysis of why being human hasn't worked so well at times in the past. So that deep social analysis is a very powerful thread that doesn't need to be overt, but it's there under the surface, and it helps make NVC the powerful practice that it is. The second thing that I wanted to say, when I was young and struggling, I went to many therapists, and I found that they usually would listen and encourage me to, talk about things and think things through. And I wasn't very good at it, frankly. I could talk about anything, but it didn't change things in the way that I was hoping for. It was not transformative. And I suspect that different people have different capacities for what it takes for them to experience transformation. But for me personally, I really benefit from having a lens that allows me to see things differently, think about things differently, and make more powerful and informed choices. For me, nonviolent communication gives me a lens for thinking about how to relate to myself and others, that it's something I can do. It's like in Christianity, they teach people to love your neighbor as yourself, which is a beautiful sentiment. But they, in my experience, were not very concrete about how do you do that?
Mm-hmm.
NVC provides very concrete approaches to how one can love ourselves and others in deep ways. It's not a mystery. It's not just you have to have a good intention and then pray for a miracle. You know how to do it. It's very, very clear how to love self and others. And I think that that is magical in its implications. And that's that power of having a recipe for how to love is part of what makes NVC so empowering.
I love it. I absolutely love what you said, Bob. Thank you so much. What else? What else? What else is there? Yeah. So very powerful what you just said. Thank you. And this is what we bring to the therapy room. And this is what we share with therapists.
I'd like to move now into speaking about the upcoming program you're offering with Living Bridges. Starting February, you're offering a 9-week empowerment therapy intensive that serves as the first level of learning for anyone who wants to learn empowerment therapy. So what exactly is this program about? What is empowerment therapy? And what will you be sharing in this program?
We will be sharing an introduction to empowerment therapy. we will be supporting people in recognizing the traits, 13 internal and interpersonal traits that therapists can embody to develop the therapeutic relationship. We will talk about 4 key differentiations that actually enhance therapy practice. We will share a model, a self-empowerment / self-empathy model to share with clients in order to help clients connect with their experience, to first of all reframe their experience in a way that alleviates pain, and then connect with deep emotions and mourn when necessary, and identify ways to address challenges and problems, guided from their emotions and their needs, guided from within. And that's the self-empowerment model that we're going to share. And lastly, we're going to share a meditation practice called the inner silence meditation. And it's also needs-based, and it helps people regulate with self-regulation and self-control. It reduces reactivity and impulsivity and increases self-regulation and self-control. That's the program in a nutshell, the 9-week program, which is the introductory part to empowerment therapy.
So Myra addressed the question of what the program is going to contain at kind of a concrete level. And I want to bring in the conceptual level of what I think that the program might support people with. What I would hope that we will be able to do with participants is support them in, I'd like us to support participants in internalizing and experiencing what it is to have the sort of self-connection that we are inviting them to start supporting clients towards achieving. So the foundation is supporting those who will support others in themselves experiencing a deeper level of self-connection and internalizing the model of how to relate to others in a way that is more friction-free and more loving.
Yes.
And then we will be applying this at the level of concrete practices that support clients in just little small incremental interventions, learning how to think differently, learning how to relate to themselves and their experiences differently. The intention is never to be heavy-handed. This is not about, we're going to sit you down and give you a lecture and, you know, pull out your notebooks and you better learn this or else. That's certainly not what we encourage therapists to do with their clients. And I'm hoping that we're not going to be doing that with participants in the program either. This is about really supporting people in finding their own way into relating to life in a more beautiful way.
And the program's titled Empowerment Therapy. Does that mean it's only for therapists? Who is it for?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's not only for therapists. It's also for social workers, caregivers, coaches, spiritual companions, anybody who is in a one-on-one relationship with another individual and who is supporting their well-being, their journey to wholeness and to fulfillment.
So I'm guessing it would be supportive for anyone who works with other people one-on-one in support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I think so, yes.
I think the program is likely to be good for anyone who has a deep intention to support others in being well, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually.
Yes.
And we talked about the therapy aspect of this. If I'm not a therapist and I choose to come to this program, what can I expect to get from it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think that there are some skills that we will, and concepts we will discuss that are universally beneficial, we believe. For example, learning to communicate with others without judgment, without blaming, learning to connect with ourselves and find the answers from within. Learning a meditation practice that brings about calmness, increased calm. Those are some of the things that learning what certain traits to embody in order to have to relate to others in ways that are healing and curative and therapeutic, whether that could be family members or our children or our coworkers, anybody really that we encounter. So those skills are universal, I believe, and useful, even if the participants are not necessarily in a one-on-one relationship with a client.
I expect that we will be doing hands-on, well, maybe not hands-on exercises since we're virtual, but I expect that we will be doing exercises where people will be practicing supporting one another and applying the interventions that are part of the practice, and just learning how to, at kind of a microscopic moment by moment level, how to relate to one another in a way that embody the principles that we're sharing. And I think that can be useful to anyone in their interactions, but we certainly want to keep the focus on those who are specifically engaged in a professional or amateur or avocational role of, I'm going to support this other human being and put supporting their well-being as my top priority in at least this moment in our relationship.
When we speak about therapy, maybe you talked about other professions in which people work one-on-one, social workers, coaches. You also earlier spoke about the internal and interpersonal traits. So much of this work is interpersonal, that is working with other people. Where does the internal come in?
An example of an internal trait that I believe to be indispensable for this work is self-connection. So that we relate to people in ways that are, when we're self-connected, my experiences and also my observation, we relate to others from a place of equality and care. We are much less likely to run the risk of exercise power over, to come across as the authority. Mm-hmm. And in so doing, to disempower the people that we work with. That's an example of an internal trait. Another internal trait would be, for example, humility, knowing that we don't know. We don't know the other person's experience. We don't know what is best for them. we have some things to share that have worked for us and that we believe in, but we also trust each person's capacity for growth and self-determination. Those are examples of internal traits that we propose, we develop when we engage in therapeutic relationships that reduce the inherent power differential that exists in such relationships.
For me, a lot of this work is about supporting wholeness. I think that when we talk about people being traumatized, the effect of trauma is to fracture the psyche and fracture our wholeness. And my goal is that as a helper, I want to be a whole person relating to another whole person, for my client to experience my wholeness, my integration, and for that to support their wholeness, their awareness of their wholeness, and to support their integration. So this principle of integration, I think, is another lens for thinking about what it is that we're doing together. We're trying to integrate internally and collectively.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting that it's really this integration within myself that can offer a solid foundation for the work I do interpersonally.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes, yes.
Can you tell us a bit about how empowerment therapy brings together aspects of both therapy and NVC? How does it bring both these frameworks together?
I want to say something silly that makes it's as a physicist, one of the ways that we do physics is we slam particles together in a particle accelerator and they smash and other particles fly apart and we discover all sorts of things. So in this course, we're going to smash psychotherapy and NVC together and see what flies apart. And we're going to learn all sorts of things from it.
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
I don't know that that's a remotely accurate answer. It was just a fun image that came to me.
That sounds fun, and I'd sign up for that.
Well, NVC is therapeutic in and of itself because it teaches us a new way of relating to ourselves. It teaches us, for example, how to transform guilt and shame into self-understanding and growth. It teaches us how to transform anger in such a way that we can actually meet our needs powerfully and effectively. It teaches us how to transform depression even. So it teaches us how to relate to others in ways that are more effective and harmonious and intimate even. All those things that NVC teaches are integral to psychotherapy. So these are some of the ways in which we adapt the concepts of nonviolent communication to psychotherapy, which are foundational aspects of therapy anyway. And then we also refine and expand and innovate the NVC concepts specifically to the psychotherapy field and endeavor.
I think that nonviolent communication takes some of the principles that may be already part of many practitioners' psychotherapeutic practices and offers ways of deepening those intentions that are likely to be present already. Just as I said that NVC offers practical tools for how to love your neighbor, it also offers practical tools for how to offer resonant accompaniment to another human being as they tell you what's important to them, how to be fully present, how to be with someone in a way that they feel that accompaniment and trust that you're with them in a way that is not condescending, not secretly judging them, that you are simply and authentically and humanly present in a way that has alchemical properties of transformation at its best. And I'm sure that those are things that good therapists are likely to be doing in various ways already. But this is a set of perspectives and concrete skills that deepen those intentions that are already at the heart of most therapeutic practice that I'm aware of.
I resonate and adhere to everything that you just said, Bob. So that's one thing. And I also want to say that according to my understanding of the research, the greatest and most healing aspect of psychotherapy is the relationship with the client, above and beyond the school of thought. And empowerment therapy offers a very concrete set of skills to develop and deepen the therapeutic relationship. And so in that sense, and some of it come from NVC and from Carl Rogers and from Abraham Maslow, and they built on the work of Martin Seligman and positive psychology, because they focus on happiness and subjective well-being. And it expands on that work. Empowerment therapy expands on that work. And also, I reiterate, helps therapists build the relationship, the single most important aspect of psychotherapy, as I understand.
Yeah, I resonate with just how important that is. The therapist as a human being, being with another human being in a human way that is healing and wholesome for all concerned.
And on that note, I'd like to say, if you're watching this and if you're interested in understanding how you can bring this into your work, sign up for this program that's starting in February. You'll find more details in the caption and the text that accompanies the video. Thank you so much, Myra and Bob, for giving us your time today. Any last words before we close?
Yes. I want to say that with our viewers that I have a passionate love affair with India, and I'm hoping that our work will support many people in India and beyond. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see many of you there.
I just want to invite listeners to kind of practice some of what we might share by self-connecting and taking a moment to pause. This is not about what your conscious mind and thoughts say, but your whole body has a wisdom to it. And part of integration is listening to all parts of us. Some of our inner parts express themselves cognitively through thoughts, and some of our parts express themselves through body sensations. And in order to listen to all of our parts, we've got to move at the speed of our slowest parts. And if we go too fast, we will miss some of those inner voices that have wisdom to offer. So as you contemplate whether this program might be something that could contribute to your life, I invite you to just pause, slow down, listen to your body, listen to your mind, listen to your heart, and let life whisper to you and see what it has to say. Thank you for spending some time with us. And if it's right for you, I would love to see you going forward. Thank you.